Yo, what's happening, YouTube? Afro Cuban here, and I'm back with another video of building my cinematic universe. Now, for those who don't know, this is where I go into full detail and break down every movie that I will put out if I was the one in charge of building a DC cinematic universe from scratch. This is what I believe fans of DC will want to see in a cohesive and connected universe. Gripping and thrilling stories that revolve around characters we all grew up loving. Now, full disclaimer, this is in no way hating or condemning anything that James Gunn or Zack Snyder has done or doing with their universe. This isn't one of those videos where I'm saying this is what they should do or this is what they should have done. No, the DCU and the DCEU is its own thing, and this is basically my original ideas and original stories. So basically, this is how my videos work. I read through the script as it's broken down into a 3-act format because I want to try my best to bring you, the audience, into my world so that you guys can grow and develop along with my characters. In other words, I want you guys to feel what they go through and understand why they do the things they do. So, now that we've gotten the intro out of the way, I'd like to welcome everyone to the official first movie of Phase 2. And trust me when I say that this phase will be even crazier than the first phase. You see, in Phase 1, it was more about introducing the heroes to the big screen and establishing their characters and personalities. But in Phase 2, we will see our heroes take on more mental and moral challenges. In fact, I'm going to just say this now, the entire second phase will mostly revolve around Superman and Lex Luthor, meaning even movies that they're not in, the choices they make and the influence that they have will send a ripple effect throughout most of this phase. And you guys will see what I'm talking about as phase 2 plays out. But okay, let's jump into my first movie of phase 2. And coming off of the heels of Justice League, this movie will be another big blockbuster that I'm sure fans will love to see. This is Batman Superman, World's Finest. Act 1. So, this is when we finally get introduced to Lex Luthor for the first time. He's been out of the country, away on business, and now he's back and he's currently running for mayor of Metropolis. He's at a press conference giving a speech and talking to reporters about his decision to run for mayor. But then, after the press conference is over, he goes into his office and he presses a button on his phone, and a secret door opens up, revealing a secret lab that he has behind his office where a bunch of scientists and computer tech workers are doing research and keeping tabs on Superman. So this means that even though Lex has been out of the country, he still has been keeping tabs on Superman because Lex, he's a rich narcissist who doesn't like the idea of some alien god receiving all of the love and worship. Lex feels that with everything that he's contributed and with all of the money and influence that he has, he should be the one who's worshipped. So this prompts Lex to have his team keep track of Superman's power level and to also track his movements, to look for flaws and weaknesses. You see, Lex is trying to find a way to kill Superman because once dead, Lex can harvest his body to find a way to extract his powers and use it for himself. So Lex pulls up CCTV footage of the recent Justice League fight, and Lex is also doing research on the Justice League. And he learns that after the big fight against Steppenwolf, Wonder Woman has vanished. And Flash, his speed makes it near impossible to keep track of his whereabouts and movements. And then Lex zones in on Batman. And Lex figures out that Batman doesn't 100% trust Superman. So Lex figures he'll use that to his advantage. So Lex looks deeper into Batman and he also finds out that Batman has developed a friendship with the police captain of Gotham, Jim Gordon. So Lex comes up with a plan. He decides he will have Jim Gordon taken away and held captive so that he can use him as blackmail and leverage to get Batman to do whatever he wants. He will use this leverage to put Batman and Superman at odds in hopes of them killing each other. Lex figures that either Batman will weaken or kill Superman or Superman will kill Batman. But either way, that's one less hero he has to worry about. Now, obviously, Lex isn't going to go to Gotham and kidnap Gordon himself. So he has his team find the most sadistic and craziest person in Gotham and set up a meeting. And his team ends up setting up a meeting with Joker. So Lex has his team pick up Joker and bring him to a secluded location for a secret meeting. And Lex gives Joker $1 million to find and kidnap Gordon. And Joker accepts the money and agrees to do it. But what Lex doesn't realize is Joker is a sociopath who plays by his own rules and doesn't care about money. So when Joker returns to Gotham, he actually goes to Jim Gordon's house to kill him. So Joker walks right up to the front door and rings the bell. But unfortunately, Gordon ends up not being home. But his daughter, Barbara, ends up opening the door. And when she sees Joker, she tries to run, but Joker shoots her in the back, paralyzing her. Joker has a sadistic smile on his face and he wants Barbara to suffer. And he also doesn't care about the money that Lex gave him. So he ends up ripping up all of the money and then he strips Barbara naked and then takes a bunch of pictures of her while she's on the floor bleeding out. And then Joker sets the house on fire and leaves as he laughs hysterically. Now, Barbara can't use her legs, but she can use her arms. And she uses her arms to crawl to her phone where she calls 911. And the police and fire department are able to get to her and save her from the fire before it's too late. Now, Jim Gordon is actually attending a police ceremony where he's being announced as the new police commissioner. But this exciting news turns into heartbreak when Gordon gets the news that his daughter has been shot and nearly killed. So he races to the hospital to check on her, and that's when we cut to Batman and Robin. Now, at this point in time, unbeknownst to Batman, Robin is actually dating Barbara. So Robin ends up taking this news especially hard. And Robin is consumed with rage and wants to go and get revenge on Joker. But Batman tells him that that's not the way to go about it. So this actually ends up causing a rift between Batman and Robin because now Robin takes his anger out on Batman. And Robin is blaming Batman, saying that he could have saved so many lives and prevented so much devastation if he had had the balls to kill Joker from the start. But Batman yells at Robin and stands his ground that he will never kill because once he crosses that line, he's no better than the criminals. So their argument continues to get heated, and Robin actually ends up sucker punching Batman. He punches Batman and then he rips off his mask and cape and throws it on the floor. Dick then jumps on his motorcycle and leaves. He is officially done being Robin. He quits. And now we get into Act 2. So Batman goes to Gordon's house, which is now a taped off crime scene. And Batman sneaks in to see if he can find any clues or anything to hint at Joker's whereabouts. Batman sees the ripped up and burnt money on the floor and he tries to salvage what he can as he runs fingerprint analysis. And the only prints that are coming up on the money belong to one of Lex's bodyguards. And then Batman runs the serial numbers that are on some of the bills and he finds out that the money all came from banks that are owned by Lex Luthor. So Batman puts two and two together and realizes that Lex must have something to do with this. He must have been the one who paid Joker. So Batman calls his Batjet and makes his way to Metropolis to find Lex Luthor. Now, when Batman reaches Metropolis, he breaks into one of Lex's labs, and Batman is already angrier than usual because of his friend's daughter who was just nearly killed and the recent fight that he just had with Robin. So Batman is being more brutal than usual as he makes his way through the lab, taking out security guards by snapping their arms and ramming their heads into tables and walls. And then he uses brutal interrogation tactics on the scientists to force them to tell him where Lex is. But unfortunately, the scientists don't know anything. So Batman then makes his way to the next lab. Now, this is where Superman comes in. Superman gets wind of all of the brutal attacks happening at LexCorp Labs, and he finds out that it's actually Batman. So Superman heads out towards the next LexCorp lab to stop Batman before things go too far. So now, when Batman reaches the next LexCorp lab, we see that the building has already been cleared out and emptied. And that's when Superman also enters the building. Batman is in the middle of searching one of the file cabinets, and Superman walks in and tries to talk to Batman, but Batman ignores him. And then Superman grabs Batman's arm to get his attention, and that's when Batman does a grapple move on Superman and slams Superman into a table. Superman has a look of confusion on his face, but then he super speeds over and gently pushes Batman. Now, even a gentle push sends Batman flying across the room. Superman then says, I guess the stories are true. You actually are crazy. Batman then gets up and throws a smoke pellet at Superman's feet. But the smoke doesn't do anything but annoy Superman. Superman walks right through the smoke and says, You do know your toys won't work on me. But then Superman takes a whiff and realizes that it's not normal smoke. Superman breathes in the smoke and says, Methane acetylene? And as soon as Superman says that, the entire building explodes. Batman is outside of the building, watching the explosion with a detonator in his hand. But not even the explosion slows Superman down. Superman comes flying out from the flames, and now Superman is really annoyed. He flies towards Batman as Batman throws a bunch of batarangs and tries to evade Superman, but Superman is way too fast, and he speed blitzes Batman and uses his heat vision to burn Batman's cape and belt. So now Batman is completely vulnerable. He has no cape and no belt. And then Superman super speeds over and grabs Batman as he picks him up. Superman then uses his x-ray vision and sees that Batman is actually Bruce Wayne. Superman then says, This is above even your pay grade, Mr. Wayne. Your brand of vigilantism is borderline terrorism, and I won't allow it. Not in my city. And then Superman throws Batman into a pile of rubble. And then he says, Whatever business you have in Metropolis, it ends now. Go home, Bruce, or next time I won't be so polite about it. And then Superman blasts off into the sky and flies away. Batman slowly stands back up, and his shoulder is dislocated. And he stands there, broken and beaten, as the screen fades to black. And now we get into Act 3. So, a few days go by, and Batman is forced to give up his search for Lex as he uses this time to recuperate and heal. But as we all know, Batman never really gives up. So, we learn that during their fight, Batman was able to slip a tracker onto Superman. And while Bruce uses the few days to heal, he also uses the tracker to monitor Superman, and he ends up finding out that Superman is actually Clark Kent. So Batman uses this to his advantage to throw Superman off his game. He wants Superman to believe that his mother has been kidnapped. So Bruce comes up with a plan to take Martha Kent out of the picture. But he doesn't kidnap her or anything like that. He just sends her on a vacation trip to a secluded island. He makes her think that she won it in a sweepstakes, and he flies her away to an all-inclusive resort island. Alfred then says, Sir, if he is to believe you kidnapped his mother, won't he be even more ruthless and less forgiving? Batman then says, No, he'll be upset, but his moral code will clash with his feelings and throw him off his game. And I will use that to my advantage to take him down. You see, that's the difference between him and me. Deep down, he is a good man, and deep down, I'm not. So, Batman then returns to Metropolis and lures Superman back for round two by leaving fake clues that his mother has been kidnapped. So, Superman flies over to where Batman has led him, and his eyes are glowing red with anger. Batman waits on a rooftop, and Batman is now wearing an armored mech suit. So, he now believes he is strong enough to match up against Superman. Superman eventually shows up, and he slowly floats down with his eyes glowing red as he yells, Where is she? What have you done with Mrs. Kent? Batman stands there in his mech suit, and he smirks and says, Your mother is just fine, Clark. I could never bring myself to hurt anyone named Martha. So now Superman has a confused look on his face as he says, How how did you But before he can finish his sentence, Batman punches him. And the punch is so powerful it sends a shockwave that shatters every window in the vicinity. And then the two of them get into a brutal, explosive fist fight. And for the moment, they appear evenly matched. But then we find out that Superman was actually holding back. Superman then screams, Enough! As he super speeds up to Batman and punches him so hard he cracks open his protective helmet. And then Superman uses his heat vision and nearly melts the front of his armor. So now Batman is forced to use his last resort tactic. Batman's chest plate opens up and he sprays a kryptonite mist in Superman's face. So now Superman falls to his knees, wheezing and gasping for air. And Batman slowly walks up to him, and then Batman starts wailing on Superman. Every punch he lands, you can feel the ground shake. And Batman just continuously starts pounding and pounding on Superman, as well as smashing Superman's head into parked cars and slamming cars on top of Superman until Superman's face is completely bloody and mangled. It almost looks like Batman is about to kill Superman, but then he stops. Bruce removes his helmet and looks Superman in the eyes, and then he gives his famous Dark Knight speech. He says, "Don't worry, you'll live. The kryptonite will work its way out of your system shortly, and you'll be back to normal. You see, I didn't come here to kill you, Clark. I came here to send you a message. A message to stay out of my way. A message that next time I won't hold back. And now you'll remember, in all of your most precious and private moments, you'll remember that I'm the one man who beat you." So that's when Batman gets a call from Alfred, as Alfred informs him that he's got a hit on Lex's location. So Batman tosses Superman on the ground and leaves him. And then later that night, we see that Batman is back in his normal costume as he drops down where Lex has been stationed. Now, from the outside, it looks like a normal construction site. But as Batman watches, he sees Lex and a couple of his scientists walk inside of a shipping container, and then the container goes underground. So, Lex has a secret underground lab where he does most of his illegal activities and experiments. And as Lex is talking to one of his scientists, we then see that all of the lights in the room go dark. Several of Lex's guards draw their guns, but then one by one, they each get dragged off into the shadows and knocked unconscious. And then when the lights come back on, Batman is there standing directly behind Lex. Batman grabs Lex by his collar and says, "You hired the Joker to come after Gordon and his family. Why? And where is he?" Lex then says, "I hired that deranged clown to take the commissioner and bring him back to me, not sexually harass and try to kill his daughter. That's not how I do business. And I have no clue where that sociopath is." But then, as Lex is talking, Batman looks down at his hand and sees that Lex is holding some kind of remote, and the button is blinking red. And that's when a giant android picks Batman up and throws him across the room. Lex then stands up and says, "Allow me to introduce you to Amazo." Now, I haven't fully finished integrating all of the updated specs, but even at about 20%, I think he can handle the likes of you. Now, quick side note. I know in the comics and in the cartoons, Amazo is basically like a godly android that possesses the powers of the entire Justice League. But in my universe, in order to keep things fresh and modern, my Amazo is just an android that was built by Lex to only mimic Superman's powers. So, since right now he's only operating at about 20%, at the moment, he only has heat vision and super strength. But the longer he fights, the more he will download and adapt, and the more abilities he will gain. But okay, back to the story. So once Batman gets thrown across the room, he tries to throw an explosive batarang at Amazo, but it does no damage. So Batman continues trying to evade Amazo's heat vision, as well as large crates and tables being thrown at him. And the fight goes on for a while, and Batman just continues trying to dodge Amazo and throw a bunch of batarangs. But then, after a while, Amazo eventually downloads super speed and X-ray vision, and he sees Batman hiding behind one of the pillars. So then Amazo zips over and finally gets his hands on Batman and picks him up by the throat. But that's when Superman crashes down into the lab and tackles Amazo into a wall. Now, Superman is still weak from his fight with Batman, but he still musters up every ounce of strength he has left to save Batman's life. And because Superman isn't at full strength, he also struggles against Amazo as well. Superman uses his heat vision, but Amazo brushes it off, and then Amazo fires his own heat vision, and it blasts Superman back against the wall. And so, as Superman and Amazo exchange blows, Batman takes his time to hack into one of Lex's computers and downloads all of Lex's files on Amazo to see if he can find some kind of weakness. And as we pan back over to the fight, we see that Superman is actually losing. He's losing the fight, and Amazo is about to kill Superman. But then that's when Batman yells out, "The android is vulnerable to freezing temperatures." And that's when Superman quickly uses his freeze breath to stop Amazo in his tracks. Amazo is completely frozen, and Superman flies over and punches him, shattering Amazo into hundreds of pieces. Batman then comes over and helps Superman to his feet, and that's when they realize that Lex escaped during the fight, and he also deleted and destroyed any incriminating evidence against him. The Joker was also never found, so he's somewhere roaming free as well. And now that the big climactic battle is finally over, Batman and Superman are standing on a rooftop as the sun comes up. They both shake hands and apologize to each other, and they also agree to work together to one day bring down both Lex Luthor and Joker. And then, as the sun finally comes up, Superman turns and looks at the sun and takes a deep breath as his wounds begin to heal. And then, when Superman turns back around, Batman is gone. The camera then pans in on Superman as he has a big smile on his face, and that's when the screen cuts to black. Okay, so now that the movie has ended, this is where we would get a quick post credit scene. And when it first starts, we hear a voiceover monologue coming from Superman. Now, the screen is still black, but in the background, we hear Superman telling a story about a brave man from Krypton. A man who, even without powers, stood against evil and corruption and protected the city of Kandar. And then, as the monologue comes to an end, Superman ends it by saying, "This brave hero, this brave man was known as Nightwing." And when he says the name, we get a quick scene of Dick now wearing his Nightwing suit, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, and then diving off of a building just before the screen cuts to black one last time, and that's where the movie officially ends. Okay, guys, that is where I will wrap up my world's finest movie. And as we've seen in this movie, Batman and Superman were both mentally tested by Joker and Lex Luthor, to the point where our two heroes were forced into a brutal conflict. But in the end, they found a way to work together and put their differences aside. Now, Lex Luthor and Joker are both still roaming free, and it will take more than brute strength to bring them down. Our heroes will have to find a way to outsmart them if they want to have a chance at stopping them. And we will just have to wait and see how the rest of Phase 2 plays out so that we can find out how it concludes. So stay tuned for my next upcoming projects. And yeah, that's basically all I got for you guys today. So as always, be well, be great, and I will catch you nerds on the flip side.